Hey guys, what is up, and I welcome each and every one of you to a very special League of Legends video. Today we're going to be going over all of the pre-season 10 changes, or in other words, season 10 changes that Riot is implementing, giving you guys the rundown, making sure you're caught up, you understand everything, and you're good to go. I was invited to Riot Games not too long ago to actually playtest these changes myself, so I can give you guys the description and my own personal thoughts on them as well. So if you end up enjoying this video, then don't forget to hit that like button, but let's just get right into it. So you're going to be seeing gameplay in the background of me playing while I was of course at Riot Games, and I'm going to be talking about all these changes. There's a bunch of new ones, but I want to start off with arguably the biggest, which of course are the elemental dragons. So what Riot is doing now is that they want the elemental dragons to literally affect the map, the terrain itself, which I think is super cool. But let me explain how this works more specifically. So the first two dragons that spawn on Summoner's Rift will never spawn again. When the third dragon spawns, the terrain will change based on whichever element that third dragon is, and that's the only dragon that will spawn for the rest of the game up until Elder Dragon. And of course, once Elder Dragon spawns, the team that kills it will of course get its benefits. So let's talk about that to make it make a little more sense. As an example, let's say the very first dragon is Ocean Dragon and the second dragon is the Mountain Dragon. Well, those two dragon types will never spawn again. And let's say the third dragon in this case is the Infernal Dragon. When the second dragon is killed and the third dragon is revealed, in this case Infernal, that's when the map instantly takes a change. It becomes this new kind of area now, right? Where in the case of course of the Infernal Dragon, the four buffs, the red and blue buff on both sides, now kind of explodes. And from then on forth, only the Infernal Dragon will spawn up until a team has captured the maximum amount of dragon buffs that they are allowed for their own team. So in other words, once a team kills their fourth elemental dragon, that's when the Elder Dragon will start to spawn, and the team that killed their fourth elemental dragon first will also get a powerful Dragon Soul buff, which will last for the rest of the game, giving them a huge advantage, and of course spawn the Elder Dragon right after that. So that right there is kind of a TLDR of how it'll work in a very quick fashion. But let me go a little bit more in depth as to what the dragons offer now, how the map changes, what the new Elder Dragon is, what all the Dragon Soul buffs are, etc. So let's start off with the Infernal Dragon. Now the Infernal Dragon is probably one of my favorites because I think it actually impacts the map the most personally. So what happens when the third dragon is infernal? Well, now the map is gonna explode at the four buffs like I mentioned earlier. This is gonna create new paths and make opportunities for a quick flank or a sidestep that your opponent isn't expecting, as you can see on the map and screenshot right here. It essentially destroys all the walls around the buffs. Now, if the third dragon is an Ocean Dragon, well, this will change the map in a drastically different way. This will create more water around the map, so you're going to see water within the Raptor Pit, for instance. You're also going to be seeing much more bushes around the jungle, so it'll give you much more ways to kind of hide and do a lot of extra plays and cool stuff like that. And there's going to be honey fruit plants that sprout up in each jungle quadrant. If the third elemental dragon is the Cloud Dragon, then the map will shift in a way where around each of the four jungle sections, you're going to have these sort of airways or speedways where once you walk through them, you're going to get an increase in your movement speed, which will make things kind of more interesting when it comes to dashing to a certain area, when it comes to running to maybe the Baron or the Dragon Pit, fighting in general to dodge skill shots, etc. And of course, the final dragon is the Mountain Dragon. If this is the third dragon, this is going to create extra kind of rock ruptures around the map, more specifically at choke points that lead into the river to make things more difficult to traverse. It'll make warding completely different as well. You can also hide behind them for line of sight, and it can make a lot of really interesting plays. Next, let's quickly talk about what each dragon offers your team whenever you kill it as a buff in general, similar to the ones at the moment, but some of them are also a little bit different. So we have the Fire Dragon, which is very similar to the current one, where you gain a percentage of increased attack damage and ability power. The Ocean Dragon, also somewhat similar, regenerates a percentage of missing health every second. The Air Dragon, however, now gains CDR for your ultimate specifically, and the Mountain Dragon gives you a percentage increase of your armor and magic resistance, so much better for tanks. Personally, I think these make a lot more sense, especially Mountain Dragon. I think the current Mountain Dragon on the live servers is a little bit too strong actually, and this kind of gives you more situations where based on your comp, it will actually be very powerful, but also based on your comp, it could also be quite weak. So earlier I mentioned how the first team to kill their fourth elemental dragon gets something called a Dragon Soul buff, which is essentially just a very OP dragon buff. And as I'm sure you guessed, that also depends on the type of dragon that you killed to earn the buff. So let's go over the changes and differences for that right now. So starting off with the Infernal Dragon, which I personally think is the best one. Every 3 seconds, your next attack or damaging spell creates a small AoE explosion, dealing adaptive damage that scales with bonus attack damage, ability power, and bonus HP. The Ocean Dragon Soul will give you the following. Dealing any damage triggers strong health and resource regeneration for 3 seconds, and damage to minions provides a slightly less regeneration version of it. Now, as far as I'm aware, this also should include energy regeneration as well, which is great. The Cloud Dragon Soul gives you the following. Hitting enemies with abilities or attacks lowers the cooldown of your base abilities, so essentially everyone gets a Spear Shojin, just a better version. And last but not least, we have the Mountain Dragon Soul, which is also very good. After not taking damage for 5 seconds, gain a shield that lasts until destroyed. The shield's magnitude scales with bonus attack damage, ability power, and bonus HP. So in other words, it's Malphite's passive on steroids. Now, something to keep in mind that's very important to remember is that only one team can get a Dragon Soul. So like I said, the first team to kill the 4th elemental dragon gets the Dragon Soul. The other team does not get that whatsoever because the Elder Dragon spawns right after that, which, speaking of, let's talk about what he offers now. So it's similar yet different at the same time. Let me explain. No longer will the Elemental Dragon increase the current dragons that you already have stacked up as a team. So let's say you have 3 fires. Well, no longer will that mean 6 fires now, right? It doesn't change that whatsoever. It's completely unique to itself. It still has that true damage burn effect, though it's a little bit weaker overall compared to the current live Elder Dragon, but it has a new effect called Elder Immolation. And what this offers you is pretty intense. And yes, you're gonna hear this correctly. If you attack an enemy champion that is at 20% HP or lower, you will kill them instantly. And yes, that is exactly what it sounds like. So before you guys start thinking this is overpowered, which I mean it kind of is, let me explain my personal thoughts. So when I first heard about this buff, I thought it was completely overpowered, which I mean it is, but keep in mind that this late into the game, by the time you get someone to that threshold of HP, right, 20% or lower, there's a good chance they were gonna die regardless. This just makes it a little bit faster. So even though it is, of course, really strong, it is not actually as ridiculous as it sounds on paper. Unless, of course, you're killing a tank, which, of course, 20% of a tank's HP is quite a bit of HP. Keep in mind that there is an animation of the Elder Dragon kind of coming out of your champion to actually execute the target that's 20% HP or lower. So, with that being said, there are counterplays. You can zone his Hourglass. You can use something like Kindra's ultimate. You can even heal just before the laser from the dragon actually hits you and executes you, right? There are ways to outplay it. But that's about it when it comes to the dragon buff specifically, which again, like I said, is probably the biggest change coming in the season 10. Next up, let's talk about another pretty big change, which of course is going to be the side lane alcoves and the brush. So as you can see here with the screenshots, top lane and bot lane now have these kind of alcoves that kind of create a whole extra section at the outer part of the map, which will create really cool ways to juke around, hide, make outplays, bait people, and etc. This will of course be affected by fog of vision, which is what makes the outplays happen to begin with. Now this won't be used every single game, but the few games where you do use it to its full potential will be completely game changing. On top of that, you're going to notice that there are 2 new brushes around Summoner's Rift. 2 of them are on the entrance to Dragon and to Baron Pit based on the team that you're at, which you can see on the screenshots right here, which kind of create new openings and new ways to hide and wait for opportunities to strike, which I think is also pretty cool. Another small change that Riot is doing is jungle path diversity. Let me explain. So, at the moment, Riot thinks that jungle pathing is very dependent on the Krugs because they just offer so much value when you kill them. And at the end of the day, they aren't wrong. So what they're doing is that they're actually reducing Krugs' value, but buffing the value of Gromp, so that junglers can hit level 3 off of any combination of the outer camps, Gromp or Krugs, buff camp, and any third camp. On top of this, they're also going to be adding small respawn timer icons on the minimap so you know when those smaller camps are going to be respawning as well. Riot also wants to increase top lane and somewhat mid lane influence around the map as well, so let me explain that next. With the new elemental dragons, you would think that the game is going to be very focused around the dragons, especially now, but to try and kind of counteract that, they're going to be doing the following. They're increasing the base minion experience slightly, so solo laners can level a bit faster, and they're reducing the amount of bonus experience generated when allies share experience, so bot lane levels a little more slowly, or if jungle decides to go into a lane to share experience, it'll be less experience there as well. They're also slightly decreasing jungle experience. Additionally, to balance out the map objectives a little bit, they're also spawning the Rift Herald earlier in the game and allowing the Rift Herald to respawn once if she is killed early, which could be pretty massive. Another big change that they're adding in the preseason or season 10 is that they're changing the way support items are going to be working, and also they're doing a mini rework to lethality items, to how the lethality stat works, how the current lethality items work, and also even adding new lethality items as well. Now, I'm actually going to be making a video specifically talking about all these new items and new changes very soon, so stay tuned for that, most likely tomorrow. Because of course, lethality is one of my main subjects, so I wanted to kind of dedicate a video specifically to that, while also talking about the new support item changes as well. And last but not least, some final minor changes coming over to Season 10. They're removing Spear Shojin, which I am personally extremely happy about. The item was completely busted on the champions that actually abuse it. And they're also tweaking some runes and keystones that apparently are just way too strong, which I also agree with. For instance, Conqueror, they say, has been too effective at allowing sustained damage fighters to deal with tanks who have lost their place in solo lanes as a result. They're toning down the anti-tank nature of the rune by removing the true damage conversion and putting more power into the stacking adaptive force. Following that, we have Kleptomancy, which also is going to get some changes, where apparently at the moment it's used as a way to generate lots of gold in an uneven matchup like ranged versus melee top, right? But they're pulling the power out of the farm gold off of my enemy type effect pattern and pushing it more into the early game elixir drops. And last but not least, we also have Aftershock, which they state the following. Aftershock continues to attract squishy champions looking to negate their intended fragility. They're lowering the flat resistances more on this rune and buffing the power it gives to tankier champions, which again, I've heard that before from Riot Games. I'm hoping this time it actually does that. But that right there, guys, is going to be about it for this video. There you have it, kind of like a TLDR of all the changes coming to Season 10 while giving you more information and hopefully helping you understand it more by giving you actual examples of how things look like, explaining it, etc. So if you guys enjoyed this video, then don't forget to hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. I'll have a bunch of other Season 10 videos coming out on my channel very soon, so stay tuned for that. I have a bunch more content to release for you guys. Hopefully you will enjoy it as well. So thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you for the next one. Peace.